Angling is a series of choices, from an infinite number of options, some simple, like what's your target species, to the complexities of understanding fish location on a seasonal basis. Then there's the myriad of presentation options. It's as mental of a game as physical. Each challenge is different, but the basic process remains the same. For angling is like solving a living, breathing puzzle. And to see the big picture, you need the fishing edge.
Look at the size of that bird.
Wow.
Look at the size of that pike. Oh. Yep. Looked up, Jim. Ooh.
A little bit better one there.
That's a big one. Ooh, look at him. Yep.
There's
There
a
you
good
go.
one.
Oh,
Oh,
big fish,
big.
man. Big fish. Big fish.
There we go.
Wow, that's what we were looking for. Look at the
Yeah.
sun came out and bingo.
Yeah. That helps, I'm sure.
Okay, you gonna give me one more? Ooh, look at that. You want to? Yep, there it is. Huh? Looks like the pad's paid off pretty good. It's been a day of lots of miles, lots of different cover types, and a lot of fish, and a couple of these big ones. It's the post-spawn, pre-spawn, spawn time of the year, early season bass fishing. We had a great day. I want to share with you how we did it. It's my search bait right there, the new Trigger X slop popper. Today is a little bit of an adventure. It's the Minnesota Bass Opener, which is late May. Actually, the opener was on Saturday a couple days ago, and the weather has been so unstable, it's unbelievable. We had 6 to 8 inches of rain, high water, temperatures are 80 degrees, temperature was 37 degrees this morning. The fish are most likely around the spawn. We're at a lake we found ice fishing this winter for panfish, and it looks like a beautiful lake to catch big bass on. And today it's going to be lots of experimentation, and hopefully we find some really big largemouths.
You know, anytime you come to a new body of water like this, each lake is unique unto itself based on the depth of water, the amount of flats, how the cover is laid out. And that'll be a big part of the experimental process today, sort of analyzing the lake and then figuring out where the fish are. Right now it's early season, so we're probably generally focusing relatively shallow, but we'll see.
Nice fish, Jim. Oh, look at that. Came right out of that cover.
Fat little guy.
Yeah, it's a real tub. Look at that. Good start. Oh, done. You done? Oh, huh? Look at that. That's a real tub. Either he's been porking out or this fish is still pre-spawn. That's a lot of what will determine today is the mood of the fish and where they're at around the spawn, because the water is about 64 degrees. And typically when the water's like that, the fish are somewhere around the spawn. And I want to show you this. I saw when he was coming up, he's got a perch in his belly, huh? That's a fat one. Either he's been porking out on perch, or I should say she has some eggs in her belly. This one back. There you go, Tubby. The lake we're fishing today is a eutrophic body of water in central Minnesota. To clarify, the definition of eutrophic is waters rich in phosphorus, nitrates, and organic nutrients that promote the proliferation of plant life, especially algae. That sounds a little technical, right? So we just call them pig ponds. They're often surrounded by farm fields, and they're often producers of very big bass. This particular lake has a max depth of about 18 feet. Now let's talk cover. Here we've got reeds, pads, isolated wood, rock shorelines, and massive weed flats with a few deeper breaks. Basically, there's a ton to fish, and we're trying to cover it all to establish a pattern. That looks like a good one, Jim.
Yeah, nice one. Come here, buddy.
I'm doubled up. Oh, this is a big fish. Big fish in here. Come on, get out of there. Whoa, whoa. Wow, look at that. Unbelievable. Come here, buddy. Huh? Ooh, it's another real beauty. Look at the marks on that one's fins. You can see that they're working the beds over.
We've been seeing so far, you get up in those shallow flat bays and there's still a lot of smaller males on the inside weed edges, and if you move along pretty quickly, we were actually catching quite a few different fish, but we haven't really seen the really bigger fish, and the big fish could be still back there, and it may be more inherent if it warms up and the weather gets a little bit nicer, or the fish could be farther out.
Yeah, you see this? All of a sudden we just jumped into 5 here, Jim. This might be a point that sticks out into the lake.
Yeah, it's notice that.
Like we said before, this is a relatively shallow eutrophic lake. Along with all of the obvious cover and structure to fish, there are endless fields of stringy weeds with no particular edge. When the fish are active, they'll often move to the edges, like the inside weed line. When the weather shuts them off, these fish retreat into these massive weed flats where it's nearly impossible to access them. The writing is on the wall for this lake. We fished a ton of spots. We caught a lot of fish, but only a few were the size we were looking for. So, well, Jim, it's time to bolt, huh? We spent, 3 hours out here. We ran into a lot of small bass, and it seems like the fishing has progressively gotten slower throughout the day, and we were hoping it would be the opposite, that it'd pick up. So Jim made a recommendation of a lake he knows of that's right next door here that's deeper and clearer, and with this overcast, maybe that deeper, clearer water will be better than the shallow, dirty lakes. So we're gonna punt on this one and hopefully find some big bass on the next.
It's one thing, here in Minnesota, we're blessed with a lot of different lakes and different types of lakes that are really close together. But the same goes if you're on a large reservoir and you might be fishing the shallow water section of that particular reservoir. Fishing is tough. To make a radical change, to move to a different portion of the lake, you can move down to the lower end of the lake where it's deeper water. Those fish might be in a completely different mode.
The beauty of living in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, is you're never far from a new one. Sometimes we'll hopscotch to 3 or 4 in a day. This being said, it's vital to follow the letter of the law when putting into and pulling out of the water. Aquatic invasive species pose serious threats to our waters, and it's our collective responsibility to help prevent the spread. So check the regs, follow the laws. It's in all of our best interests.
Ooh, there's a better one. Boy, that didn't take long.
Oh, it's a tank. It's a horse, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, that was worth the drive.
What? Yeah, a little bit better right off the get-go.
Wow.
That's a good start. Now we're talking. Went to a new lake, a little bit of a change of the game plan. And the first bass we catch is a pretty good one. We'll see if we can get some more of these guys. It's a little bit better guy there. The last lake we were in was a real shallow, fertile lake. The maximum depth was like 17, 18 foot of water. Where this lake here actually has 35, 40 foot of water. We're figuring that maybe those fish aren't so far advanced. The other thing in that particular lake, the way the cover was laid out, once the fish dumped out into deeper water, it was really hard to access them because of just big, massive weed flats that you couldn't fish through. In this particular lake, we have a little bit deeper water, and the fish actually have real distinct edges where the fish are going to fall back to in this case, because we've actually had a pretty severe cold front where the fish would fall back to.
When we say lakes are more advanced, that may need some clarification. It's important to understand the dynamics of different systems. For example, the lake we fished earlier was shallower and more fertile than this one. Our thoughts were the fish there may be further along in the spawning cycle, meaning more fish are post-spawn rather than pre-spawn or spawn. And of course, post-spawn fish can be very finicky. So we moved to a lake that wasn't so advanced in the cycle, hoping these fish will be more aggressive and easier to access with more defined weed edges and water that's just easier to read.
It's sort of interesting is where we're getting these bass at. It's a little bit better one. We're in these like fields of lily pads, but realistically there's just isolated like what are termed as rhizomes, or the roots of these lily pads where they're tore up like that. Seems like that's where the bigger bass are coming from. But they're sort of spread out, but it gives you at least something to target in these big fields of pads. That's where that other one was sitting too, and he was a big one.
That's a nice fish,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
It's tearing you up.
Yeah, whoa, whoa. There you go. Come here, buddy. Now we're starting to get with the program.
Got him?
Yeah.
Nice. Gosh, that looks fun pulling
Yeah.
out of there. Nice fish, too. You called it.
Yeah, I told you. We'll see. We really got it sort of pinned now, don't we?
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting when you get on a lake and you get the pattern sort of figured out, and you can actually almost call the shots of where the fish are right now. The weather sort of is determined that the fish are a little bit deeper. We get in these shallow bays, and you find the deepest best cover in those bays, and you cast in there with a swim jig, slow roll it past there, and you get a bite.
Weather is always the X factor in the spring. Up north spring conditions can be very volatile, and this directly affects fish both positively and negatively. Just a few degree rise in water temperature can turn fish on throughout the course of the day.
Buddy.
Oh, caught in the pads. Nice fish. It was a nice one.
You know, it's sort of interesting because actually after you have a cold front in these back bays like this, you could come into this bay and swear there's not a fish in here. You get a little bit of warmth and weather, and all of a sudden the whole bay becomes alive, but you don't see the bait fish, the bluegills, the bass, or anything, and where they come from, but they're just buried down in the heaviest weeds, and they're sitting tight to the bottom, and you can't get them to move. So sometimes it's actually really, in adverse conditions, it's really easy to fish through a lot of fish, even though we're not even that deep of water. It's only 3, 4, 5 foot of water in here at the deepest. Big one. Big one. Oh, oh, oh. No. There we go. A little bit better one. Boy,
Yeah.
You got my attention.
No kidding.
Come here, buddy. Look at that guy. Come here. Come here. Boy, look how I snouted him. Boy, she really ate it. That's a really fun bait to fish through this stuff here. When you look at this bait in the water, it really does a weird, because it's got this really wide sort of button tail, but then it's got sort of rounded shoulders, and the bait actually sort of lurches and then vibrates like this. Boy, it's got a really great action to it. When you see this thing moving really, really slowly through the water, look at this thing here. See how it vibrates? I saw that one come out and hit it. You could see the sort of tracking in on the bait.
Jim and I have both packed an arsenal of rods, but the one I keep picking up and has been the most versatile for fishing shallow mixed cover is our Quantum Angling Edge Technique series in a 6-foot, 10-inch medium heavy action. With a Quantum XO 100 reel and a 7.3-to-1 gear ratio, spooled with 30-pound Suffix 832. This is a great lightweight combo. I can throw light baits with it accurately and still have enough power to pull fish from developing weed cover. You can see the rhizome, the base of the rhizome there, how white in color it is. There was a largemouth about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. It was just sitting on that, and that's what the fish will nest on in this type of environment. When you get these shallow black bottom bays, most of the nests you'll find will either be on a piece of wood or the roots of the of the lily pads, which are called rhizomes, and that's what that particular bass was on. When you get out in the main lake, the fish really like to nest around wood with some type of sand or harder bottom.
You know, one important tool for this type of heavy cover fishing conditions, like we've been fishing a lot of pad fields today, is a trolling motor. This is a 36 volt Minn Kota 4-Trex, and this is really designed for this type of bass fishing. What it has instantaneous cable drive, and what that enables me to do, it's an extension of my body. I don't have to look at the trolling motor to decide what direction to go in. If I want to go right, I just go right. When I want to go left, I go left. But the other thing is the way we're actually fishing through this cover. Oh, Jeremy's got a good one right there. He does.
Big
He's
fish.
got a good
Yep.
one.
And big fish on there.
Yeah, that is a big one. Well, he had you way back there. Was that on the buzzworm again?
It was.
What?
Yeah, it really, oh, his mouth just looked big. He's not quite as big as I thought, but it's a nice fish. Oh, look at that. Huh? It was cool. I just saw the wake coming, chasing that down. It's so fun back in here. Interestingly enough, the mood of the fish, the locations of the fish have been changing throughout the day. I mean, early in the day it was cold, cool, a lot of overcast. We didn't think we were going to get a break, and the sun's come out here now a little bit, and that certainly changed both the position and the attitude of the fish. We were finding bigger fish and more fish further out on the rhizomes, and as the day has progressively gone on, the shallower water is probably the warmest, and they really like warm water this time of year. I'm noticing right now, Jim, we just jumped up to 70 degrees, where earlier in the day it was 63, and we're real shallow right now. So that gradient of 5 degrees or so in temperature can make a huge difference.
As I was saying, what you do is we're moving along, sort of intermittently stopping the boat and really casting at really specific isolated cover. Jeremy's got another one. But you can see like these thicker clump of lily pads. You have a point, a little sort of almost a little channel, a little pocket right there. There's a lot of isolated spots to cast to. And what we're going to do is move up about another cast, and then I'm going to stop the boat and we're going to fan cast almost like the spokes on a wheel.
Yep.
There's
There
a
you
good
go.
one.
Oh, big fish,
big
man.
bass.
Big fish.
Whoa,
big
look
fish.
at that one there. That's a big one.
It's big fish. Holy smokes.
There we go.
Wow, that's what we were looking for. Look at the sun
Yeah.
came out and bingo. Yep. Hooked up, Jim. Ooh,
A little bit better one there.
that's a big one. Ooh, look at him.
Yeah. That helps, I'm sure. Look at that guy.
You gonna give me one more? Ooh.
Come here. Come on, you're talking. Look at that guy there. Ooh, that's a beautiful bass, no question about it. Spring fishing is sort of a volatile time of the year. You have to move with the fish, you have to change your presentation, but I can guarantee you one thing, it's one of the best times of the year to catch some number of real big bass if you get in the right situation.
Spring fishing can be feast or famine. Today has been a feast, even though we are facing cold front conditions. Hey, we caught 75 bass. They weren't all giants, but the action was great. The important lesson we learned was to stay flexible. If one lake is off, another may be red hot. And remember, anytime you're jumping around in new bodies of water, take the steps to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. They are a serious threat to our way of life, and we all need to help. Off we go.
You got a cup of coffee?
Hey, I just read this morning and I'd like to share it with you. It's in a Believer's Voice of Victory magazine. The headline to the article is Living in God's Will. And the first sentence starts off, everyone who wants to be in the will of God, raise your hand. I'm sure most of you raised your hand. You'd want to be in the will of God. Goes on saying a few things, and it leads to this paragraph that I really enjoyed. It kind of capsulized a lot of things. It says, true, the will of God is complex. It's deep and wide. Its scope ranges from the monotonous to the grand. It is moment by moment, yet spans of eternity. It is unique to each individual person while embracing the whole of all creation. No particle of creation, whether spiritual or natural, is too small to escape having destiny and purpose. No entity is too grand that it requires no direction of the Divine One. So it's not uncommon for the will of God to seem so complex that we're too intimidated to actually require ourselves to reach for it. Then it goes on. In all of its depth of complexities, following and accomplishing the will of God is as simple as trust and obey. It really is that simple. You know, I've spent a good portion of my life studying the Word of God. This particular Bible, by the way, is the chronological study Bible. If you've never been into the Word of God, you don't want to start with this Bible. You want to start with the King James or the Message Bible. A lot easier to understand. But this helps me get a little more into depth, and I've done my best to not only study it, but take so much of God's truth and apply it in my life, apply it in business philosophy, apply it in relationships. And it really is simple. Trust and obey is what it all boils down to, and you will see it work in your life. I promise you that. Trust, obey, put it to the test. Hey, from all of us here at the Edge, you have a good, safe fishing season. We'll see you in the water.